All right, guys, today we are talking about Renaissance architecture. So, what is architecture? Buildings and stuff. Okay, so it was inspired by the buildings and architectural styles of Roman antiquity. So, again, we're seeing that classical influence of ancient Roman Greece. So, we're going to see lots of arches, columns, and barrel vaults. The essential attributes, they are usually symmetrical, meaning that when you're looking at them straight on, they're going to be the same on both sides. The kind of architecture that still exists today that we can look at and study are churches, palaces, chateaus, villas, and public squares. The typical blueprint or plans included porticos, which we'll see, which is basically just a fancy porch with columns supporting the entablature, or a rotunda covered by a dome. We'll see lots of examples of that. So this Michelangelo doing everything. So he also designed buildings. So this is one of the buildings he designed called the Palazzo Medici. Who was it for? The Medici family, you guessed it. We're going to see things by Brunelleschi. This is what we're going to focus on mostly today, and we're going to watch a documentary about it next class. So this is the dome of the Florence Cathedral. Huge deal at the time because it should not have been possible. It's taken a long time for engineers of today and architecture historians to figure out how he even built this with the technology they had available at the time. I think there's not electric cranes. There's not, systems where you can just lift people up and support. They didn't know how he did it. Alberti, who built this Santa Maria Novella. Bramante, who designed Santa Maria della Grazia. And Raphael, our painter from last class, also architect, Palazzo Pandolfini. And then Romano designed the Palazzo Te. All right, so starting off with Filippo Brunelleschi. Born in 1377, died in 1446 in Florence. He was an architect and an engineer. Need that science knowledge to be able to figure out how to build a dome like that. His major work and first success was the Florence Dome, the dome of the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, which is commonly known as the Duomo, the dome, in Florence. And that was being built from 1420 to 1436. It takes a long time to do it without technology. He is credited with rediscovering linear perspective in architecture. Most of what is known about his life and career is based on a biography written in the 1480s. So you can take it all with a grain of salt because it was written almost 40 years after his death by someone else. So it was by an admirer. So it was someone that thought highly of him. So it may not have put the bad parts of his life in there. Okay, so this is the Florence Cathedral with the dome. So what's important to note is that the cathedral itself already existed, and this single tower here already existed. And he was tasked with adding on the dome to the back of it. So this is the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, and then Brunelleschi designed the dome that was added on later. So we have the cathedral, the baptistry, and Giotto's tower existed already, and then he added the dome. There we go. The big dome. Okay, so here's just a couple different angles of it so you can see how massive it is. You can see it from quite a way away, which was the goal. They wanted the cathedral to be the focal point of the city when you were coming in, traveling from the mountains on horseback or traveling by boat through the river. So here's what already existed. Okay, and then they dug this part out to be able to construct the dome there. So it was already a functioning structure, and then they wanted to add onto it to make it more visible. So we can see some of his plans. So how was it constructed? We're going to learn more about this tomorrow when you watch the documentary. But for today, we're going to learn about the two major innovations that allowed him to build this dome. So we have the double dome construct. So these are two parallel shells connected by brick spurs. So the inner dome is the real roof, and then the external dome protects that dome from water and makes it much larger. So there's an inside dome, and then there's the outside dome that makes it huge. And then how did he lay the bricks? It was in a fishbone bricklaying pattern, so a herringbone pattern, so where the bricks were laid like this instead of one on top of the other. And They used this on the top to make it lighter. You didn't have to use as many bricks. And then stone was used on the bottom where it wasn't curved. So the bricks are laid both horizontally and vertically. And what that did is it slayed the weight out so it wasn't all resting on the joints, the horizontal joints between each brick. But when you laid bricks both ways, the weight is more evenly distributed so it doesn't collapse in on itself. Super cool stuff. So here we have the inner dome and then the outer dome sketches. And here is that fishbone bricklaying pattern. So we have the horizontal bricks and the vertical bricks going up and down. That way, instead of all of the weight coming down on this single seam right here, it is spread out over both of those directions. And that the vertical bricks allowed that spiral pattern to close in on itself. All right, next architect we're going to talk about is Andrea Palladio. He was born in November 30th, 1508, and then he died in 1580. He was inspired by the writings of ancient Roman architect Vitruvius. So why is that important? He was the first to systemize the plan of a house. So we're going to look at something that he designed, which is a house. So this is the first time that people were being hired to make big houses that weren't for royalty and weren't for churches. And he uses the ancient Greco-Roman temple front as a portico. So we're going to see the kind of porch entrance to these houses looks like a temple. So that is a blending of the sacred structure of the temple and the secular houses. He was known as a master of supreme symmetry. So what supreme symmetry means is that no matter which angle you look at this house from, which direction, it is symmetrical from all sides. So if you look at it from the front, symmetrical. From the side, symmetrical. From the top down, symmetrical. He uses rounded arches flanked by a rectangular covering. So we see this in most of the homes that he's designed. We have this atrium, which is something that came back from ancient Roman houses. So this is a central courtyard kind of inside the house, flanked by a building. Then we have the Villa Rotunda. This is the house that we're going to be talking about mostly today. So it has this temple front portico, so this kind of porch that's designed to look like the Roman temples. And there are 4 of them. So no matter which direction you look at the house from, it is symmetrical when it's divided in half. So the Villa Rotunda was built for a retired Monsignor who wanted a place for his parties. It's on a hill called Belvedere. This central plan with 4 identical facades and projecting porches to the 4 compass points. So each of those porches faces true north, south, east, and west. Each facade shows a new view of the countryside. The central plan has a circular platform where people can pick whichever view. And each facade has its own Roman temple, and it's inspired by the Pantheon, which we'll look at it side by side. So you can see from the floor plans, no matter which direction you divide it in half from, it is symmetrical. And we see here this aerial view. If you were on top and looking down, it looks symmetrical every direction. So here it is, big old fancy house for parties. Each of those 4 temples. So the temple structure was designed to mirror the Pantheon. So we see the entablature with the columns, and then directly behind it, we have the dome. It also inspired Monticello, which is the house that Thomas Jefferson built, our 3rd president. So Thomas Jefferson was inspired by Palladio. Super cool. We'll learn more about it brunelleschi tomorrow. Get excited.